girls are girls and boys are boys. And I want to make this very clear. I don't fault anyone for how they want to live. That is fine. Do what you want to do. But we don't have to lie to someone in order to be kind. Like, that's not being kind. That's not being inclusive. Biology is biology. That's just lying to someone. Men stand for protecting. They're the protectors. They're the providers. They are the logical, rational thinkers. And what we've attempted to do with this push towards toxic masculinity is teach them not to do those things. And when they do those things, that they're bad. So me as a feminist woman, I don't need a man to protect me. I don't need a man to help me make decisions. I can do all those things on my own. How dare you be misogynistic and try to do those things for me? Instead of working synergistically, like women and men, we need each other's energy. I don't need my husband. I want my husband. It is a synergistic relationship. Men and women were made differently by God for a reason. We're supposed to work together in that fashion. So when you move men away from that natural, innate role, you're really taking away their biological purpose. And so that's what the Democrats need to do. They need to go back and look historically what men were built to do and embrace that and not chastise them for it.
Annemarie Wiley is the wife of Marcellus Wiley, who played in the NFL, was a Pro Bowler, played 10 seasons in the NFL, but she now is becoming the star of the family. You may have seen her on Real Housewives of Beverly Hills. She's going to tell us all about that. You may have seen her on some podcasts or political shows talking about how her politics have evolved. She is a really interesting person. Her origin story is really amazing. And I think we'll be having her back because there's a lot to talk to her about. You can follow her on X and on Instagram. Annemarie Wiley is our guest next. Annemarie, welcome. It's so great to have you. Thanks for being here.
Thanks so much for having me, Michelle. I'm excited to be here.
I want to know so much more about your backstory. Like, you grew up in Canada, right?
I did. I am of Dutch and Nigerian descent. So my biological mother is Dutch. My biological father is Nigerian. Okay. They put me up for adoption when I was born, and I was adopted by a Dutch Indonesian family. So I grew up in an Asian household.
Wow.
Yes. In a very small farm town in Canada.
Wow. So what brought you to the States? So if you have trouble sleeping, as I sometimes do, look to the same solution that works for me, or at least give it a try. You've got nothing to lose, and I'll tell you about that in a second. It is called Sleep Cream. Sleep, C-R-E-M-E, kind of like creme, because it is the cream of the crop. Sleep Cream is not something that you ingest. It's not a prescription. It's just a topical lotion that you put on at bedtime, and it helps you to sleep. Now, I know I was skeptical too, but then I tried it. And lo and behold, it worked, and I sleep great. So the company is Sleep Cream. They use an all-natural CBD combined with the finest essential oils. They have this rose that is so lovely that it's like you're getting aromatherapy and sleep assistance all at the same time, and some moisturizing too. So I put it on the insides of my arms, bottoms of my feet sometimes. And within minutes, this stuff helps me to relax and allows my body to do what it's supposed to do at night, which is sleep. You can find them at sleepcream.com, sleepcreme.com. Try it for a couple nights. See if it works for you, because it works for me. But look, if you don't experience better sleep, Sleep Cream will refund your purchase guaranteed within 30 days of the purchase order. That's it. Go to sleepcream.com, sleepcreme.com. And for the next few weeks, use the code HOMERUN, because it is baseball season, at checkout to get free standard shipping on your first order. That's HOMERUN at checkout for free standard shipping on your first order. If you're ready for your best sleep ever, Sleep Cream, CREME.com. Wow. So what brought you to the States?
You know what? I was just looking for, new experiences, new opportunities. I played sports starting from 5 years old. I ran track. up into high school. And then in high school, I switched over to basketball and I played through college as well. And I got my nursing degree in college. And once I graduated, I moved to California, to Los Angeles as a travel nurse, actually. So I was
You can make a good living as a travel nurse.
Absolutely. Yeah. I'm now a nurse anesthetist, but yes, it's a wonderful way to make a living. It's a great way to, to try new things out. And the California sun just, absorbed me and I have never left.
It's tough to leave that. That's where I grew up in Southern Cal. And if it weren't for the taxes and certain, government officials, maybe I'd come back. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah.
But so then you kind of get into this stardom, this level of stardom. How did that start, Annemarie?
So it's really interesting, Michelle, because I was very happy being a very private person. So I'm married to Marcellus Wiley. I know you guys know each other.
Yeah.
A 10-year NFL veteran, Pro Bowler. And, so I was very happy, working and being the mom and doing all those kind of supportive roles and letting him be the person in the public light.
Yeah, but he's so shy.
Yeah, isn't he though? I know, it's terrible, right? And then out of the blue, I was asked to be on a reality TV show, to be on the Real Housewives of Beverly Hills. And so when this opportunity presented itself at first, I was very taken aback because again, I really liked being a private person. And my husband was like, you know what? You do so many things. You're a multi-hyphenate. You have such a unique background story that you can share with so many people. He's like, I think this would be a great opportunity for you. And so I agreed to do it because I really wanted to show a different kind of housewife. I wanted to show someone that was a professional. I wanted to show, a happy nuclear family, especially a Black nuclear family, because I think that's lacking in entertainment now. And I wanted to show someone with a varied background. Again, I'm Canadian, I'm adopted, I'm biracial, and those were all things that I wanted to share with fans. I wanted to be someone that was relatable to people. Mm-hmm. It didn't really turn out like that, but that was my hope.
So why didn't it turn out like that? If you could sort of sum it up, did you just not fit what they were trying to push out there? What happened?
No, I think I actually fit perfectly. And when I started filming, so they approached me, they were already halfway through the season, and they approached me and said, hey, we're filming season 13 of Housewives. The producers want you to come on the show. So I came in midway through the season. I started filming right away, so I'm just thrown into this. And in the media and the press, the narrative was so overwhelmingly positive. It was Annemarie Wiley, wife of Marcellus Wiley. She's a nurse anesthetist. She's an ex-collegiate athlete, mother of 4, just all these glowing things were said about me. She's so fun. She's so funny. She's got such a big life. She's going to fit in perfectly. Okay. And then a clip resurfaces of Marcellus saying on one of his shows that he would not allow one of our daughters to play sports against a biological male. He said that he would protect them from that. Mm-hmm. So as soon as that was picked up in the press, and very intentionally picked up in the press, the narrative completely shifted immediately. It went from all of this praise to Annemarie Wiley is transphobic. She's a bigot, blah, blah, blah. Right away, Michelle, it was really terrible. And then, the season, and then we filmed this one episode that, of course, Bravo never aired. It's funny also because I didn't know going in, because again, I was not in entertainment whatsoever. Yeah. I didn't know going in that Bravo and NBC were considered a woke network. I didn't know any of these things. So we filmed this one episode that, again, did not air, where one of my castmates who, intentionally was trying to bring hate to me asked me about this. And I spent 3 hours defending this stance against these women. And, I was like, of course, I was a collegiate athlete. I've been an athlete since I was 5 years old. I was wearing a dress and I have all these scars on my knees. I'm like, I need bilateral knee replacements because of what I gave to my sport. I have 3 daughters. I'm like, of course I don't think that it's fair for biological males to compete against women. And I'm a medical professional. I'm a nurse anesthetist of 13 years. I've been an RN for 21 years. Like, you can't deny the biology, right?
Right.
There are so many different factors: heart size, lung capacity, VO2 max, wingspan, muscle fibers. Like, it's just endless.
They don't
And
have boobs. They don't have a uterus. They don't get a period.
yeah, there's just countless things that just are insurmountable. And then I even started throwing out examples like, let's take LeBron James versus Lisa Leslie. Let's see what happens. Let's take Serena versus Djokovic and see what happens. Let's take martial arts. Let's take boxing, you know? And it's so funny as well because, you know, there's that clip, I'm sure you've seen it, of Serena Williams on David Letterman years ago. And she said that Andy Roddick had asked her to play. And she was like, oh, no, Andy, I like playing with girls. I know that if I played against men, I would lose 6-0, 6-0 in 5 to 6 minutes. Yeah. She said this a long time ago, before it was a controversial topic. Yeah. So again, I had to defend this barrage of vitriol from these women for about 3 hours. You know, and again, these are women that have, you know, they're not athletic. They've never played sports. They don't even understand. But really what it is, it's the virtue signaling that they had to do. I realized this after the fact. It's the virtue signaling that they had to do, and what people in entertainment in Hollywood need to do in order to stay in the good graces of all of these woke networks. Yeah. So when the season aired and I was character assassinated, Michelle, character assassinated. They made me, I probably received the worst edit that anyone on the Housewives has ever received. They didn't show any of my personal life, didn't show me as a mom, it was just very, very horrible. And then I found out at the end of the season, when they didn't ask me to return, it came out in the media that the reason that all happened to me is because I was a conservative Trump MAGA supporter. Okay. And it was really wild because, you know, I was liberal from Canada. I was liberal my entire life. I wasn't into politics until 6 months ago. So this experience, this happening to me, made me look into what that meant. I'm like, so if defending women's sports and saying that biological males don't belong in women's sports is a political thing, and that's considered conservative, then what does it mean now to be a Democrat? What does it mean now to be conservative? And so I looked into what the two parties now stand for. And I was like, well, Michelle, I stand for truth, common sense, biology, my family, and safety. Those are the things that I care about. And so I was like, well, here we go. I guess I'm conservative. And then, you know, around the time of the election, when everyone was being very vocal that they were voting for Kamala, I said, well, I'm going to vote for Donald Trump. And that has been met with a lot of backlash.
I'm sure.
And then, oh yes, especially as a Black woman in Los Angeles.
Because you're all the same, right?
We are a monolith.
I mean, what the hell? It's like when women appeal to other women that you must vote for a woman. How could you not vote for a woman? Well, if the woman isn't qualified, I'm not going to vote for her.
That's right. That's right. If the woman can't string a sentence together and has no direction for our country, she's been in office for the past 4 years. Right.
And it was a disastrous 4 years.
And it was a disastrous 4 years. And now we know about the cover up of his cognitive decline that we could all clearly see was happening. She had no direction for the country. So I was like, I can't go that way. The Republican Party more aligns with where I am at this point in my life right now. And so that is how I voted. And then when he signed the executive order to keep biological males out of women's sports, I was ecstatic. And I was very vocal about that. Shortly thereafter, I was invited to the White House for Black History Month. And then this has just kind of snowballed into a new position for me, you know, doing political commentating. And I'm absolutely loving it. I'm so passionate about it and I'm enjoying it immensely.
Well, you know, that's what's great. And it's interesting how you use the term snowball. it
Mhm.
is sort of, it feels like it's growing. It feels like there are more people gravitating toward common sense. And when you see when you see the Democrats going, we need to figure out how to speak to men. And they're pouring $20 million into some study of how to speak to men. I mean, they are clearly so detached, and they've been married to this idea for so long, Emery, that, the future is feminine, that, patriarchy bad, women good. And what do they think men were going to do?
Yeah.
Even men who virtue signal and say, oh, yes, and I'm all about the women. At a certain point, some men are going, what the hell? What about us? Right? So I'd love to get your thoughts on um, just this weird approach. And Democrats often throw money at the problem. They think that's the only way to solve it, of trying to win men back by studying like syntax and verbiage that resonates with them. How about just ideas?
Yeah, I think this is another area that's a perfect example of where the left has gone too far left, right? When you come out with this entire campaign about toxic masculinity, that's where you lost the men. And it's very easy to see. And I think instead of throwing all this money at the problem, what they need to do is just go back to the basics. Go back to basic biology. Go back I'm talking way, way back in time. Historic time. No, but really, what do men stand for? Men stand for protecting. They're the protectors. They're the providers. They are the logical, rational thinkers. And what we've attempted to do with this push towards toxic masculinity is teach them not to do those things. And when they do those things, that they're bad. So me as a feminist woman, I don't need a man to protect me. I don't need a man to help me make decisions. I can do all those things on my own. How dare you be misogynistic and try to do those things for me instead of working synergistically? Like women and men, we need each other's energy, right? We were built,
Absolutely.
we
And
were
you can
built.
tell me, and I might even agree to a certain extent,
Yeah.
I don't need a man for everything. I want a man. I want a partner
I
in
say
my
this,
life.
I say this all the time, Michelle. That's exactly my line. I don't need my husband. I want my husband. It is a
Right.
synergistic relationship. Men and women were made differently by God for a reason. We're supposed to work together in that fashion. So
Right.
when you move men away from that natural, innate role, you're really taking away their biological purpose. And so that's what the Democrats need to do. They need to go back and look historically what men were built to do and embrace that and not chastise them for it.
Well, they seem to be forcing this bizarre form of existence on America, and if they have it their way, on everyone. And that is through gender ideology, through critical race theory, through critical gender theory, through anti-Semitism. I mean, it's some weird developments, and some of it really took hold during COVID. We know that. But I also just watched the film, and I don't know if you've seen it, and I recommend it if you haven't. It's The Coddling of the American Mind, based on the book by Jonathan Haidt and Greg Lukianoff. It's many people have read the book and found it very valuable. I watched the 90-minute film and found it extraordinary. And it's basically about how kids, and a few of the interviewed kids, come to college from outside of the United States, like you. We had a kid from India. We had a young woman we had a young man from Nigeria, and another woman from outside of the country come in and then start college and go, wow, I thought America was a place for free thinkers. I thought America was a place for debate. I thought America was a place I could have free speech, but they felt that they couldn't be themselves because of the ideologies being forced on them, the thoughts about microaggressions and intersectionality and all these words being foisted on them by professors and some of their classmates. So I'm wondering, in Canada, as you went through school, was that part of the nomenclature? Was that part of what you experienced?
I recall none of this.
Yeah.
That was not at all my experience going to college in Canada. And I truly wonder how long this indoctrination has been going on
Yeah.
here. Because it's very interesting when I have conversations, even with some of my closest friends, who are a little bit younger than me, and the fact that they like gender studies.
Yeah.
Like, you know, when I had this conversation of mine with a really good friend who is a brilliant scholar, and she's explaining to me the difference between sex and gender.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, I've been a nurse for 21 years. Like, no, XXXY. Like,
Yeah.
you know,
They're different.
girls are girls and boys are boys. And I want to make this very clear. I don't fault anyone for how they want to live. That is fine. Do what you want to do. But we don't have to lie to someone in order to be kind. Like, that's not being kind. That's not being inclusive. Biology is biology. That's just lying to someone. So I find it very odd that is what these post-secondary institutions are doing to our students now. Like, what is the future going to look like? What is being a woman going to mean in 10 years, 15 years, 20 years? If anyone can just put on a costume and say, I'm a woman,
Yeah.
you know, what does that mean for my daughters? And that's one
Right.
reason why I'm so passionate about this fight. Like, a woman is a woman and a male is a male.
And I underscore this part a lot too, particularly in sports. You don't see biological girls or women going to compete against men just because they identify as more masculine. Why? Because they have no shot, because they don't have a chance.
Yes.
But mediocre males can come make a name for themselves, become sort of infamous, and by, say, Leah Thomas, coming in and competing against women and winning. And it's so infuriating. And I think that, people say, oh, it's a 70-30 issue. No, you know what? I honestly think it's a 95-5 issue. I think that the vast majority of Americans feel this way. People everywhere feel this way. And as you said, the virtue signaling that they're forced to do to stay in the good graces of their liberal friends makes this argument continue. And here you are, a nurse, and you've seen it. How did your scholarly friend, respond to you when you said, look, they're genetically different, men and women?
It goes back to the college indoctrination. You know, she was just very steadfast that sex and gender are two different things. And, so I just, I let her have that. But going to this conversation, what's happening in California right now, specifically with AB Hernandez. Mm-hmm. So that the CIF state championships are happening this weekend. And AB Hernandez is a biological male that is competing with the women, has been smoking all of the girls in every event that they are in. And the fact that California continues to allow this to happen is absolute lunacy. Donald Trump, 2 days ago said that he was going to cut funding to the state because of this, if they didn't stop this from happening, and even get law enforcement in to make sure that this person is not allowed to compete with the females. He said he was going to call Gavin Newsom yesterday. Gavin Newsom conveniently wasn't available to take his call. And then the CIF came up with this rule that I don't think anyone even understands clearly, where they're going to have a male winner, a female winner, and then like AB will probably win, and they're going to give this person their own medal, and then the first biological female a medal. It's lunacy. And again, like you said, when you have a female that transitions to male, they're still competing with the women because they know that they won't win. No one is saying that trans athletes can't play sports. That is not the discussion.
Correct.
We are saying, please compete in the category in which you were born. It is very, very simple. And I want to tell you that I get countless messages from mothers, fathers, aunts, uncles, these people reaching out and saying, thank you so much for using your platform to speak out for our girls, because they're terrified. Yeah. They are terrified. People think this is not affecting a large number of people. It is. And they are absolutely terrified to lose their friend groups, to lose their jobs, to lose their children's positions on teams. And another thing I want to make very clear for people, we're now starting to see some of the male athletes speak up.
Yes.
for women's sports, right?
Yeah.
So my husband again did it years ago. I got, chastised because of it. Stephen A. Smith has said it recently. Charles Barkley said it. And then most recently, Aaron Rodgers said it.
Yeah.
But very funny. You notice that the female athletes still aren't doing it. And people always say, well, why are the female athletes quiet? Let me tell you why the female athletes are quiet. Because I'll have these conversations with them in private, and trust and believe they agree with us, Michelle. They agree, right?
Yeah.
Because they wouldn't be them. They wouldn't have all their accolades and their medals if they had been competing against males. What they're afraid of is losing contracts, losing endorsements, losing relationships, losing money. This all comes down to money.
It
and
sure does.
And the big exclamation point on this is the fact that allegedly Nike is funding that study of what testosterone blockers do for males competing in sports. Like, that just goes to show you that, like, this is under a corporate umbrella. This is all very intentional.
Yeah. And for people who aren't familiar, that Nike participation in that study, they've been asked for at least the past 30 days or so, can you confirm or deny that you're involved in this study? And they have refused to give an answer unless I've missed something in the last few days. Yeah. They are not answering that. Why? It's a simple yes or no, like on Congress. Yes or no? Are you participating in the study? But they aren't responding. So that tells you what you need to know. And Nike continues to put out these ads that are so like 30 years ago. They said you couldn't win, so win. It's like, wait a minute. No one's saying that anymore. So it's the thoughts that people are forcing into people's heads and making them think that and then, as you said, you're immediately labeled something if you come out and say boys shouldn't compete in girls' sports. You're transphobe, you're homophobe, you're xenophobe, you're racist. They'll call you anything to get you to shut up.
Those words are used as weapons in order to scare people into silence. I learned that right off the bat. Yeah. That's the only defense they have. We have science and biology, common sense on our side. Yeah. All they have is hurling insults.
When you don't have an argument, you just insult, you just throw the hurls, like you said, or you hurl the insults, you hurl the names. It interests me that, for some reason, people were very much upset that the president of the United States, Donald Trump, had this Black History Month celebration at the White House, and that you got backlash for attending. Why? What did people have a problem with?
So as I've said this before, that I've learned that Black people are supposed to be a monolith. Okay, we are supposed to think the same. We're supposed to act the same. We're supposed to talk the same. We're supposed to vote the same. Yeah. If you are a Black person, specifically a Black woman, and you do not vote Democrat, you are a pariah. You are a pariah. You will be ostracized. You will be outcast. It's just assumed that you become an Uncle Tom if you vote Republican. So when I, came out that I voted for Donald Trump, and these were my reasons for doing so, I've been invited to the White House for Black History Month, which everyone said he canceled Black History Month. Clearly he didn't, because there were hundreds of Black people there with me. It's just, it's a very sad thing to actually witness, because we need to be in those kinds of rooms, right? We can't just be in situations where we all think the same and we all agree with people, because that's not where change happens. That's not where you're able to affect the future. So if we just keep staying in these situations where you're not willing to have the uncomfortable conversations and you're not willing to be emotionally intelligent, we're just going to stay in the same place. Yeah. And I think for far too long, the Black community has just accepted things that we shouldn't be accepting, right? Look at Jasmine Crockett, for example. Okay. This is an affluent, very educated, very articulate Black woman. Yet they are using her as a trope, right? They are using the loud and the brash Black woman to just say any kind of thing. in an attempt to rally people around her. And I find that very insulting and very embarrassing that whoever is having her do this, the Democratic Party or whoever is behind it, I find that very insulting that they think that's what's going to attract me as a Black woman, as a Black voter. Like that, it's the lowest common denominator. We need and we deserve better than that.
Well,
you know?
You said something interesting right at the start about how the entertainment industry has changed a lot. I think that we can both remember the Cosby Show, Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, these shows that showed Black families in affluent, educated situations. And that didn't last a long time. Now, damn it, Bill Cosby got himself into some trouble, and that forever tainted that show, unfortunately, because I thought the message of that show was really good. And for a good stretch, it was the number one show on television because that family was so relatable. It seems to me that we just can't be content with progress and looking for more progress. We have to keep going back to, yeah, but slavery. Yeah, but Jim Crow. And it's sort of like, but those things don't exist anymore in America. So why do we keep, and to me, all I can come up with, and I think a lot of people have said this as well, is that it's easier to play the victim and try to cash in on being a victim in whatever way, that whether it's power or influence, than to just go out and take responsibility for your own life and have success. What do you think?
Yeah, I had said this recently actually as well, that I really hate how the entertainment industry is so quick to put out another slave movie. But where is the balance? Where are the stories of Black uplifting and excellence and forward mobility? I feel like it is a very intentional play by the entertainment industry and by the media to constantly remind Black people, slavery, slavery, slavery. This is where you should feel.
Right.
Does that make sense to you? You should feel less than. And I think I want to make the distinction that it's important to know our history. It's important to know the Black American history, know where we came from.
Yes.
But why are we the only ones that are constantly being reminded of that and not being shown the other side? Also, look at our music, look at rap, look at hip hop. It's constantly, curse words and drugs and cars and jewelry and misogynistic language to Black women.
Yeah.
And this is what is constantly being propelled and forced upon our youth, especially our young youth in underserved communities. And I feel like, it's very intentional. I've kind of coined it corporate genocide because I feel like they're constantly feeding us these images and they're like, you know what, keep doing that to them. And they're going to go ahead and destroy themselves. And when you go back to Jim Crow, all of those things that were in place at that time were very intentional. It was a way to divide the Black community. And so even to this day, me as someone who calls out these things, I'm looked at as an Uncle Tom because I'm saying the truth of what is actually happening. Instead of just saying, come on, guys, let's rally together. We need to do better. We need to overcome this. Yes, we have to work harder, but we can do it. Instead of saying victim, 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 I'm saying, come on, let's get past this. I'm the Uncle Tom for doing that.
It's absurd. And I do think that people like the divisiveness. That's because somehow that drama, that separation, it sells. It keeps us angry. It keeps us all of these things. So, I just wonder. I remember Ben Watson, who was a tight end in the NFL, wrote a terrific book, and I read it. And I remember him writing about his dad, and Ben Watson, for people who don't know, he is Black, and his dad found like a rap record or a tape in his room or CD and absolutely crushed him about it and said, you will not be listening to this stuff. I have kids who listen to all kinds of music, and I worry about some of the messages that are in there, and it's not just the rap music. There's certainly enough on the pop side too of some stuff that's not great. How do you handle it with your kids if they want to listen to this stuff?
Well, our kids are still pretty young, like our oldest, my stepdaughter, she's 26, and she's such a well adjusted, such a brilliant young woman. So it's never been an issue with her, luckily. And then our younger ones are 5, 6, and 9. And, I think we're just gonna, when we get to that point, have those conversations with them and just, tell them that it's not like it's about resilience, right? It's about resilience and not internalizing these kinds of messages and
Right.
images. And let me give you a story of why this is so poignant for me. Because when I moved here at 22 years old as a registered nurse, that's when all of this messaging first came to me, and I started to absorb it. And I remember having those feelings of less than, all of a sudden, for the first time in my life as a 22-year-old professional, them saying, well, you shouldn't be shopping in Saks because, they're going to be watching you to see if you're stealing, or you really shouldn't be able to afford it, or Black people shouldn't, talk like you, or whatever. Just this constant messaging from the outside society teaching you you're Black in America, you need to feel less than. And it was then that I realized, like, wow, this is what they purposely do to Black America. They want us to always feel less than. They want us to feel like victims. They want us to.
And let me clarify, when you say they want us to feel, who are they?
They is, honestly, I think it's the Democratic Party. I think when they really, I do. When they keep us in a state of dependence, you've got a voter, right? You've got a voter. Keep us hating our men, so we don't have families. Keep our children without fathers. Keep us on welfare, because then you've got a voter. So when I started feeling all of this messaging, I realized, wow, this is what Black Americans that are born and raised here feel from birth. This is what they are inundated with from birth.
Yeah.
And that's why I said I feel like it's a duty of mine to be like, guys, we need to push past this.
Yeah.
We gotta catch up and excel. We might have to work harder, but we need to get past this. We can't just keep playing the victim card, right, because that's what they want. We deserve better than this. We deserve better than Jasmine Crockett. We need to get past this.
Yeah. It's interesting. They do it with all kinds of groups. Certainly they do it racially. They do it with, there was the war on women that Hillary Clinton ran on when she ran for president. I never experienced a war against me. I never did. And it isn't because I started out wealthy or anything. Look, I'm a daughter of Hispanic and Irish parents, and was one of 4 kids. All of us, 3 girls, managed to succeed in America. How is that? And I never felt like there was a war on me. But people who are told that, who want to believe it because they want to give themselves a reason not to succeed, instead of actually feeling empowered and being taught that resilience, as you mentioned, is a good thing, that rubbing up against something that's uncomfortable makes you stronger. All those things that we should be teaching kids at every level, we are instead protecting them, sort of bubble wrapping them and telling them, as you said, that they should feel less than. And it's so counterproductive that you can only imagine that it's done on purpose, because why else would you want to do it?
Mm-hmm.
We've talked about men and women's sports. I want to get back to, you mentioned you voted for Trump. Before I let you go, in 2020, you voted for Biden, correct?
That is correct. I did.
How did you, was that an easy decision? Was that, back then, was that like, I mean, it's interesting that in 4 years, you went through a transformation enough to say, yeah, no more, I'm going to vote for Trump. So What transpired between your vote for Biden and your vote for Trump?
It was literally the default. Like I said, I was not into politics whatsoever. I was just raised liberal. So the Democratic Party was just naturally my default.
Yeah.
And, I see I live in Los Angeles, right? It's just kind of the thing you do. It's the popular thing to do.
Yeah.
If you don't really know what you stand for, then you're a Democrat. You just automatically are. It's, they tout themselves as we're the kind people, we're the empaths,
the tolerant.
We're the tolerant, we're the loving, we're the whatever, like Republican bad, Democrat, we're the good people. So yeah, I voted for Joe Biden. And then, like I said, once this election cycle, forced me to actually look at what the parties actually stood for now, and just all of this woke ideology that is, infected the Democratic Party. I'm like, they've just gone too far left. And I say, I didn't leave the Democratic Party. The Democratic Party left me.
Yeah.
They've just become an unrecognizable assembly. And I can't align with those things.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, has it affected your social life in LA?
Absolutely. Oh, yes. There are people that are, people are a select group of people are very angry, and I am emotionally intelligent, so I let them have that. I don't need to be around that energy. I don't need to be around those people. And, it is unfortunate, but it's also telling that, they say they're the tolerant and the party of love, but they are the most angry and intolerant people when you don't think like them.
Correct.
And then on the flip side, I have tons of friends that voted for Trump, but they don't say it out loud, right? They don't, because they know what's going to happen if they do, and they don't want to. They don't want the professional repercussions or the social repercussions of it, and that's fine. I respect them doing that. But I think there are a lot more Republicans in Los Angeles than people realize. So the next 4 years are going to be very, very interesting as people are becoming more emboldened to actually talk publicly about their political views. And as the Democratic Party just continues to shoot themselves in the foot with just going so far left on the pendulum.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a fascinating time to be alive in one regard. It's a little terrifying in another regard. You look around at some of the protests and the people who have kind of lost their mind. And you just think, how are we going to come out of this? But at the same time, then I talk to people like you and I think, okay, there's a realization happening. There's a gravitational pull toward common sense, I think. And so maybe that loud group out there protesting, pro-Hamas group, or, whatever anti-whatever group, they're the loud ones. Mm-hmm. But I hope this number is building and growing. And I've so enjoyed talking to you because you really do represent that common sense conservative. To me, that's what conservatism is all about. It's about common sense.
Yeah. Yeah, it really is, and I think that, like you said, the quiet minority,
silent majority,
the silent majority. I mean, that's why Trump won, right? Look at the polling before the election. People thought that Harris was going to win, and she got destroyed. So we might not be the loud ones, but again, we're on the side of truth and common sense. And I think that more and more Americans are aligning with that and being vocal about it.
Yeah, I agree. Annemarie Wiley, it's been such a pleasure to talk to you. I hope we can do it again.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for having me, Michelle.
I end every podcast by saying, be brave and do good. And my guests always represent that little mantra of mine so well. And Annemarie Wiley is one of those. You can follow her on X and on Instagram. She's got some beautiful pictures on Instagram. Thanks, Annemarie.
Thanks, Michelle.
Hey, you can keep up with the Trump administration when you subscribe to the Trump Report. It's an email that brings you daily highlights from the Oval Office right to your inbox 5 days a week. Subscribe today at SalemPodcastNetwork.com/Trump.